Welcome to the Infinite and Beyond, the MIT Alumni Show. I'm your trusted host, Rob Kalwarowsky, MIT Class of 2010, world-renowned executive coach, author, and speaker. Each week, we are sharing the stories with our friends and classmates, fellow MIT alumni who've taken action to shape the world. We'll share what we've learned, top strategies, and bring our community together to help everyone achieve our goals. No, this show is not officially affiliated with MIT, so any views expressed on this show are of the host and guest only. This show is designed to build a community that trusts, connects, and shares with each other so we can all take action towards a better world. Let's get rolling. Welcome to the Infinite and Beyond show. So this is the first one we have here. And of course, we have a special guest, one of my classmates in 2010. I mean, obviously this is all going to be 2010, but a mechanical engineer 2010, Amrita Saigal is with us. She's the founder and CEO at Kudos right now, but she's also course 2 2010. Amrita, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. And I'm so honored to be the first person on this new podcast. So thanks for thinking of me.
Absolutely. I mean, I had to think of you. Actually, it was so funny. We were talking, like one of my clients is thinking about doing female sanitary pads and in Mali. And my first thought was, oh, we did this in 2009. And
we worked on sanitary pads together in 2009. So it's been a long time.
It was wild. So it was also funny because I had talked to Aziz about a week before. And so he's running Mojo in Kuwait, and it's a beauty products app. And he made some joke at the end of our conversation about like, oh, you know, something about end up in beauty. And I was like, well, we didn't know you do sanitary pads either.
True. So, never know where life's going to take you. So I didn't know my career was only going to be sanitary pads and diapers, you know? So here we are.
Here we are. And so on that note, so Amrita, can you share your story from MIT to where you are today as CEO of Kudos?
Absolutely. So it was actually senior year of MIT. Me and Rob were actually on the same team. There was a group of 16 of us, and we designed a sanitary pad machine to make low-cost sanitary pads for women in rural areas. And the idea was, could you sell these machines into like rural villages and have women start their own little micro businesses and make sanitary pads? Because in a lot of developing countries, like lack of access to sanitary pads is actually the leading reason for higher dropout rates of school-aged girls compared to boys. They end up missing a few days of school each month, start to fall behind, and then drop out altogether by high school. And so that's what me and Rob actually worked on back in 2009. And then I joined, and specifically we're making sanitary pads out of waste banana tree fiber, because in a lot of parts of Africa and India, banana fiber is very readily available. It's super absorbent. It's actually a complete waste material right now because banana trees grow and then you pluck off the bananas and then the bark of the tree is just a complete waste product. So you cut it down and then the following year a new tree grows. So we want to figure out how do we take that waste material and turn it into a useful product, as well as give livelihoods and business opportunities to rural women. So after MIT, I actually joined. I didn't quite have enough money to go work on this full time, so I took a job at Procter & Gamble, and I had worked on a few brands there. I worked on Always Pads as a manufacturing engineer, Gillette razors, and so learned a lot there. And then finally left Procter & Gamble and started working on Saathi Pads full time, along with, which is the same project that we had started at MIT as our senior design project. And then along with a few MIT classmates, we decided to start Saathi Pads in India, making these sanitary pads out of waste banana tree fiber for women in rural India. And few interesting challenges. Probably the biggest one, I think there's one thing, you sit in this like very nice high-tech lab at MIT and you're like thinking about how do you develop things for rural communities, but you didn't fully immerse yourself in these communities. So like as much as you try to do interviews and you try to Google and chat GPT things, like you only get so much information. So we actually, when I finally got on the ground in India, I mean, there were challenges that that we didn't even understand. I think the biggest one ended up being okay, you want to put these machines in rural villages, but how do you manage quality control? If I have one machine in southern India, one machine in northern India, how do I continuously get raw materials there? How do I manage quality control? Because even poor families, it's actually the ones where they have significantly less disposable income, they are even more conscious about where they're spending that money. And they're like, hey, if I only have $1, I want to buy. I feel like I didn't realize this, that the mentality was I would actually rather buy 3 expensive always sanitary pads and then use them on when I need to get out of the house, or if I'm for something like a special occasion, rather than paying $1 for, I'm making up numbers, but for 10 sanitary pads of lower quality. So there was we really struggled with this quality thing. And how do you these a lot of them don't have they've never run a business. So how do you do all of these things? It's actually very difficult. So we ended up actually changing the business model over time, which I think is one of the biggest learnings. Really, it's what you think sitting in a fancy lab at MIT is not the reality when you get on the ground. And I think a lot of other founders who have worked in developing countries will absolutely say the same thing. So we ended up changing the business model where we built a large central manufacturing facility, and we sold the product in tier 1 cities to everyone, and then use the profits from there to subsidize sanitary pads sold in rural communities. And that ended up working. It's just so funny, the business model that I went in thinking, it just didn't end up being what ended up working out at the end. So good learning, a lot of iterations. The product looks super different than what we originally did in our senior design project. A lot of changes, but that was a really good stepping stone, and really enjoyed that class. And then from there, I did do a few other things, but then I am no longer actively involved in Saathi Pads. My other co-founders from MIT are still living on the ground in India and running that company. But then in 2018, when I guess we'd all just turned about 30 at that time, and our first wave of friends were starting to have kids. I didn't have kids then. I have a 2.5-year-old now. But in 2018, I started talking to my friends, and I kept hearing, I guess people kept asking me, hey, can you do what you were doing with sanitary pads in India, with diapers in the US? And it was okay, this is an interesting thing. And from when I had worked as a manufacturing engineer at Procter & Gamble, I had learned that diapers are actually the 3rd largest consumer item in landfills, which people don't realize because they're pretty much all polypropylene, polyethylene, and baby shit a lot. And you go through 7,000 diapers per child, and this all ends up in landfills. So it was could we do something along the same lines? Doing banana tree fiber in the US, and it makes sense because there's no banana fiber sources, but could we do something similar? And from interviewing friends, the few things that I started hearing was that, one, the eco-friendly brands on the market, this is 2018, so this is 6 years ago, were not as did not work as well in their mind in terms of absorbency and leaks and performance as a Huggies or a Pampers. I think that has changed. I think there's a handful of newer brands, Kudos included. I like to think we're the best, but anyways, that have really nailed the absorbency with cleaner materials and ingredients. And then 2, the other thing I kept hearing was, 1 was that the performance of these eco-friendly brands wasn't great. And then 2, that there's just a ton of greenwashing. And I think this part is still true. And I think a lot of industries struggle with this. For the most part, when a diaper brand says that they're clean and green, what they mean is they have no added dyes, fragrances, chlorine, which is absolutely a step in the right direction, but everything is still polypropylene and polyethylene. So we wanted to figure out, could we make it with more natural materials? So our diapers are lined with 100% U.S. sourced cotton. And the benefits of that, 1, the cotton is biodegradable. 2, the other piece of feedback we tend to get is I think the stats are, I think over 50% of babies face diaper rash at some point in time. And so with the cotton and the breathability of cotton, we see a huge improvement in diaper rash and redness. And then how absorbent the diapers are and how soft they are. So that's really what sets our product apart. And we launched about 3 years ago, and just launched in Target this summer, and it's kind of been a wild journey.
Amazing. And in 40 years, we'll need them for ourselves.
You already nailed where I want to take this. I think I think one of the unsexiest sexy industries out there is the adult diaper market, and I think there's a lot of room for innovation there. So yeah, watch out for Kudos there in 40 years. So
well, you know what they always say, right? The unsexy businesses are the ones that are very profitable. So
yeah, that is
a good
very
way
true.
to think. And on that note, Amrita, what are your top 3 learnings over your career that you'd like to share with folks?
Oh my God, so many. I think one I've already mentioned, and I will go back to that again. It's like where you think your business is going to start out and like the vision for where you have it. I can almost guarantee you that's not where it's going to end up. So I think the product design, how you distribute it, like everything just continues to change. I think the second thing I'll talk about is just that community that we built at MIT. I think we were very fortunate. I can't speak for all classes, but I think our class was very tight. And like even now, like I feel like everyone kind of stays in touch, or a lot of people do. And even it's funny, a lot of my investors are actually my former MIT classmates, which is wild and awesome. And I would have never, if you'd asked me 10 years ago, am I going to have a handful of my investors being my MIT classmates? I would have been like, huh? Like, I mean, 10 years, like in college, we were all engineers. I didn't even know all these people were going to go into ventures. So that's so like, feel really lucky to have built those relationships when we were 18. And so when you're going to raise money and these are people that have kind of seen your journey and trust you, I think that goes a long way. I would say those are kind of the 2 biggest things. And then the third thing I would say that's probably been the most helpful is like talking to, like when you have a new idea for a company, like there's just so many things you don't know. And I think the biggest thing I would tell anyone is like, talk to everyone you possibly can, everyone and anyone, including your grandparents' friends, about like what you're working on. And I promise you, like every conversation, even if it doesn't result in something today, 5 years from now, I'll be like, oh yeah, I met that person who knew this, who like could help you. And I think like people are often afraid that like, oh, this person's going to steal my idea or what. Like no one's stealing your idea. Like at the end of the day, like, no, like I am not the first person to think of like, let's make a cleaner, eco-friendly diaper, right? Like there's no way I'm the first person to think about that. It all comes down to execution, right? So, I mean, yes, you need to have a good product and all of that, but execution is half the battle, right? So I think not being shy to talk about everything. Like one of our materials consultants that I hired was actually someone I met in a pizza line at a conference, and you're like, oh, okay, like this, like, and it's like been one of like our very, very valuable relationships, and yeah, so I think those are some of the things I've learned, and I'm sure you have a million things you've learned, and as is everyone else as well. So,
when you were at MIT, did you feel like you were the only one who didn't belong? Do you compare yourself with successful classmates? Do you feel like you're constantly needing to do more to feel like you're enough? Many of us feel that. I felt it too, but you don't have to feel that way anymore. You can get better results, achieve more, and feel more fulfilled doing it. I can say that because I've done it, and I coach my clients to do it too. I use scientifically proven methods, including internal family systems, values-based leadership, and habit-building techniques to transform your psychology and your life. These trusted strategies will get you results quickly, in some cases, even in our first session, and they'll last you for years. Now, My coach isn't just about learning. It's about taking action and creating results. Results that'll boost your confidence, unlock doors to opportunities you never thought possible, and equip you with strategies that only a select few ever master. But here's the thing. The longer you wait, the more opportunities slip by. Imagine what your life could look like just weeks from now. Having taken the first step, take action now. Go to robkalwarowsky.com and book a complimentary call with me. I mean, that's the point of this show, but it's your last point is such a key thing for people out there to achieve your goals. And I tell this to everybody, is like, tell people what your goals are. Yep. And like, just talk about it all the time with everyone, because of just exactly what you're saying is like, people will help you. You know, it's like, people I literally before,
like
that's
people
right.
Actually genuinely want to help other people.
Yeah. And it's something easy, but it's something that not many folks do. Like I have clients, like I have a client who's a CFO at a Fortune 500 tech company, and we're literally working on this.
I
right?
believe
And
it.
it's like, he's this massive guy, and it's like, in theory, you know, it's like something that we all do or we know, but there's a lot of these. One is cultural, the other is how people were raised. There were like all these different things that lead us to be thinking like, oh, well, this is bragging, or we need to be humble, or we need to let our work show our work, and all these things. But it's like, yes, and you can also do that in a way that's not, you know,
exactly. I think a lot of it is like, what's your tone and how do you come across? Like that plays a big part. Yes, like you obviously want to strike that fine balance of, you don't want to come across as bragging, or you want to be humble. Like all of these things are very important, but I think there's that fine balance of like how you strike those conversations that can be very beneficial in the long term.
Absolutely. Amrita, well, we should ask you. So
Yeah.
What is your goal? And of course, you know, since some of the MIT folks are your investors, you know, obviously our community is well plugged into a lot of different areas. So what's your goal? And then also, how can the community help you on your journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, the biggest thing is like, where do I see myself and where do I see Kudos going from here? So like, what we have our IP on and what makes us stand out is our double dry technology, which is like, how do you make these products super absorbent, and how do you make sure, like the biggest thing specifically with diapers is like, if a baby pees, yes, you want the diaper to be very absorbent, but you also need it to be able to wick away that moisture, because when you change your baby, you want the baby's bottom to be dry. And there's like a fine balance on like, how do you actually achieve that? And that's what our double dry technology and what we spent 3 years of R&D on. So where I kind of see us going from here is like taking our double dry technology and expanding it to a wide variety of consumer absorbents. So anything that needs that absorbing layer. And so like examples of things this could be applied to is postpartum pads, dog pads. We actually get a lot of requests for dog diapers, surprisingly. And I get it, like when dogs are sick and they need diapers, and so that, and then the other area that we talked about a little bit earlier is like adult diapers. I think it's a huge booming market. There's very little innovation there. And so it's like, how can we take our double dry technology and apply it to anything that needs that absorbing layer is really where I see us going. And kind of
amazing.
becoming,
and
ideally
how can
becoming,
the community help you?
Oh my God, so many ways. Well, I mean, the first thing right now, my number one biggest ask is, if I know us and our friends are kind of in the baby age, so the biggest thing is honestly telling your friends about Kudos, trying Kudos. That's the biggest thing. And the other thing that I always ask for is like, email me feedback directly. Amrita@mykudos.com. We really, really are able to make improvements based on what we hear from our customers. And that's the other biggest thing I can do is like, if you try the product and you have feedback, positive or negative, I always want to hear it, because we can't improve unless we hear that.
And also hit your target, buy it, and then take a photo, tag it on Instagram.
And post a review, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, that is the other big thing. If you can post a review with the photo, that's the biggest way you can you can support a small brand. And I think every brand founder will say that.
Absolutely. Now, Amrita, of course, we're all about reciprocity here. So how would you like to support our fellow MIT community in achieving their goals?
Absolutely. I mean, I think where I can be the most helpful, like I have gained so much value from the MIT community, and there's nothing more that I love to do than give back to our MIT community. And like my offer, and I really mean this, is for anyone who is starting a company, and if I can help be a thought partner. I mean, my focus has always kind of been consumer packaged goods, but if I can be of any help as a sounding board, making investor intros, kind of sharing my journey of what's worked, what hasn't worked, hiring. I mean, hiring is like a huge thing. And one of the things that I think founders don't realize that they're going to spend so much of their time doing. If I can help on any of those fronts, please feel free to reach out to me and I will do my absolute best to help you.
Well, I mean, we have to ask now. So what have you learned about hiring, and how should folks go about thinking about hiring?
I think I'm still learning. I think it's a work in progress.
Of course.
Yeah. So you probably know more about this being an executive coach and what you see on a day-to-day basis. But I think, I mean, having a good team is what makes or breaks everything, right? People that are smart, get along, are able to hustle, able to figure things out. And I think what I really learned that I value, especially at a small company, is that you have to be willing to do everything. Yes, I hired you to be in operations, or I hired you to do specifically manufacturing, but you have to be willing to just hustle and do anything and get your hands in a bunch of different things. So I think people that are very open to not just being in their lane is probably like the biggest thing that like I look for now. I've realized like obviously you want very, very smart and talented people, which almost every MIT graduate is. But I think specifically what I'm realizing is like, yes, you obviously need this level of smartness, but I think this versatility is equally important, and this ability to hustle and just figure things out. Because like in a small company where there's 5 people, like, I don't know, where do I find this person who can help with this? It's like, you need to just be able to figure it out on your own everyone's there to support each other and help, but we all also only know so much, right? So I think just being willing to figure things out on your own in whatever way you're able to do so, I think is something I really value.
Oh, so this is totally, like, you're absolutely right, is being incredibly smart and then being a problem solver, self kind of reliant, sort of, we call them entrepreneurs typically.
Exactly.
But like those are two different things. And like in the coaching business that I just left, like there were folks incredibly smart. Some of them went to like Princeton and have master's degrees and whatever, but they didn't have the get up and go.
Or they need a lot of direction, which like in a small company, like I don't have all the answers, right? Yes, I'm the founder and CEO, but my background's in manufacturing and operations. Like, I don't know marketing. I mean, I'm learning. I'm like, so like, I have to really trust the marketing team. And like, I'm there as a thought partner, as a sounding board, but I'm not the one being like, this is what we need to do. This is how we do it. I need people to tell me what to do and treat me as more of a thought partner rather than like a thought partner and a peer rather than, yes, technically I am the boss, but like, I don't want to be viewed that way. I want to be viewed as like, I'm running this. This is what I own. And like, I'm going to use Amrita as like a sounding board and that. But at the end of the day, this is for me to figure out and do it well.
Yeah. And there's just for folks out there, there's also a pivot point, right? And I work with a lot of founders that are in that 50 to 100 people range. And then they're going from I always call it like in your mom's garage to medium sized business. And
Totally.
That's when you need to hire folks and processes and procedures and add, because that's what gets you to 200 people to, 15, 20 million. And that's when you can hire people that aren't just your get up and go running people. Of course, you need some of them, but not everybody.
And I think the other thing on that hiring front is like the people that might be the perfect fit from 0 to 1 while you're doing R&D and product development and getting that product out and finding product market fit, like that is one skill set. And then it's a very, very different skill set to figure out how to scale a company. And I think that's
100%.
often a hard transition for a lot of people, and for companies to realize, okay, I needed this skill set then, but now I need a very different skill set. And making those kind of transitions is often very difficult.
It's a huge problem for founders themselves,
Yeah.
because you're not the doer, you're now the leader. And so that transition, and you'll see it even incredibly famous, like Steve Jobs, Jerry Yang, a lot of the like unicorn founders that just got fired from their own companies because they weren't able to make that transition.
It's
And
a very
so
different skill set. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
as much as I want to be doing product development and be on the manufacturing floor, like I just don't have that time anymore to spending all day, every day doing that. But I was able to do that in the first 3 years when we were fully doing R&D, right? Now it's like, okay, we need to scale. We have investors, fundraising, bills, right? Like making sure, like honestly, my biggest focus right now, I think every founder will say this, is extending runway, right? Like always checking our runway and making sure we're not going to die. That is like what I spend most of my time thinking about. And I think that's what most founders will say is like you kind of end up doing a lot more finance stuff because that's what's going to keep your company alive, right? So,
Always focused on paying the bills.
exactly. Yeah.
So, Amrita, I would love you to share maybe some of your, of course, I'm into leadership. So I'd love to hear your top 3 leadership tips for folks out there who are leading in their businesses.
Oh, that's a good one, Rob. My top 3 leadership things. I think one thing I think I mentioned already is like, I really, really like, I know where my strengths are. And I think it's taken me a lot of work to understand, like, what am I good at? What am I not good at? And like, I am not a creative person. I know that. And I am very good at like product development, manufacturing, operations, like very things that are like well-defined and there's like an outcome. Like I'm not the creative person. And so I think one of my biggest things as a founder and leader is like really, really trusting my team that they know what they are doing, right? Like, and really treating me as a sounding board and not expecting me to be like, this is what we're going to do. Because if I'm the one giving creative direction, that's not what I should be doing. Like, I know that's my strength. So I think like really, really trusting and not micromanaging, I think is something that I think has been like really, really good for our company. And just really trusting people on what they're doing and let them run with it and giving them the freedom but also like they'll own it. If something goes wrong, then it's on them, right? So it's, I think giving them the freedom, but also like, I'm okay knowing like this might fail or this might not work. And so I think just having a lot more trust in my employees is probably my biggest, I would have to ask my employees, but I think that's something that I like to think I'm good at. So, but if any of my employees are listening, please let me know if I'm wrong. So I would say that's definitely like the biggest thing. And then the second thing is, I would say the second thing is like hiring. And I think learning how to hire well has been, and you will always make hiring mistakes, right? And I think the biggest thing is if you make a hiring mistake, firing fast, which is not easy, right? I think the hardest thing I would say most founders go through is the first time you need to fire someone or let them go. I think that's a very, very, very difficult thing. But the sooner everyone will have to go through it, like it doesn't like there's just not a way to avoid it. And so the sooner that we can if it's not a good fit and parting ways sooner rather than later, I think is the biggest thing that can be beneficial to you and your company.
That's a great piece of advice. And it's something that folks don't think about, but I always liken it to just a relationship. Like if you're dating the wrong person, it's not good for either person. And so the sooner, yes, it's hard to have that conversation. Yeah. Yes, there's a lot of emotion there. You're impacting people financially, like, yes, all of these things, but you can also help them find another job too.
Yep.
And you can also, you can be a reference, you can connect them with, like, you can, whatever you want to do, but it's the sooner you end that, the better, actually the happier they'll become, because maybe they'll find something that's more
Absolutely.
in line with them.
100,000% correct.
Amazing. Now, Amrita, we got to wrap up here, but I would love you to answer this question. How would you like to impact the world?
I think for me, I really feel the area that I've my whole career has been in has really been this sustainability of consumer products. And I kind of like to call this something that I'm really passionate about, or what a lot of this falls under is this idea of elegant sustainability. And what I mean by elegant sustainability is that I think in the past, and I think there's been a huge shift in the last couple of years, but I think 10, 15 years ago, when I was growing up, there was this notion that, okay, if you're buying something eco-friendly, it is going to be of lower quality, and it might not look as beautiful, it might not work as well, but you're making that trade-off to do something better for your skin, for the environment, for everything, right? I think that is no longer, that's no longer going to work. Now I think what I like to say is these products need to be elegantly sustainable. They don't just need to be sustainable, and they need to be sustainable in a non-greenwashing way, but they also need to be designed beautifully. They need to look great. And I think that's equally important. I think that's something that has not been super important or taken precedence in the past. So I think that is something that I think that is changing and will continue to change. And the other thing is, the reality is a lot of these eco-friendly, sustainable brands, like us included, they're more expensive than your traditional petroleum, plastic-based ingredients and brands. And the reality is as much as we want to be affordable to everyone, we're not just charging more because we want to charge more. The reality is our raw materials cost, for example, cotton costs 6x the cost of polypropylene. I'm not making 6 times in profit with Kudos, right? We've tried to do a really good job at keeping our pricing, not significantly higher than your standard brands. And I think we've done a pretty good job at that, but we're definitely more expensive. And if we want to be accessible to more people, we that pricing is for a lot of people, it's pricing, right? That's the biggest thing. And so when are you going to get to the point that these eco-friendly, sustainable products go mainstream? It's going to be when the cost of natural materials is cheaper than the cost of plastic. I think that is when you're really going to see mass change. And the reason why a lot of these natural materials cost more is because these supply chains just aren't as developed, right? We're the only one using the Pampers, Huggies, etc. are not using cotton in their diapers, and in order to do so, these supply chains are they're still early, they're still developing. So it's up to these smaller brands to really develop these supply chains so you can hopefully get to the point. I'm not saying just developing supply chain is the only thing that relates to cost. There's obviously a lot of things that go into it, but I think this is one of the big things. And can we get to that point where we make these materials with different innovations and different supply chain improvements cheaper than your petroleum-based alternative? And I think that's when you're going to see mass change. And that's something that I feel really passionate about, is how do you get to that point where elegant sustainability is mainstream, that you're actually paying a premium for the plastic alternatives? And I think that's going to be really, really beneficial to the world, the environment, and to all of us.
Such an inspirational message. I love it. For folks out there, of course, you can check out mykudos.com for more on the diapers, or you can find them at Target, obviously, in the United States. And you can connect with Amrita. I've dropped her LinkedIn in the podcast notes as well. And she mentioned her email, so I'll throw that in the podcast notes as well, too. Is there anything you'd like to share with folks, or just a final word?
I think you hit on everything, Rob. I think the biggest thing is thank you for doing this podcast. I'm so excited to hear what all of our other classmates are doing. And I'm really excited that you're doing such a good job at bringing the community together and sharing everyone's story. So thank you, because I know that that's a lot of work, and I really applaud you for doing that.
No, thank you so much. And I mean, it's incredible to connect with folks again. I haven't talked to, we haven't talked since college, so it's amazing
Yeah.
to see you
But I'm saying
and chat.
it's so nice for you to bring everyone back together. So I really appreciate that.
And for folks, you can see actually there are banana trees in the background if you're watching this. So that'll be the next project for next year is
Love that. I love
Amrita, it's incredible to chat with you. It's been amazing to see and hear your journey. And for folks out there, you can find her in the Gwyneth Paltrow Goop catalog too.
We're not in the catalog, but we did do a deal with her on Shark Tank. So
It's kind of an inside joke because it was a line from one of the keynotes I did. So it's kind of an inside joke for me.
Was the one who was off. I apologize.
No. It was it was just Anyways, for folks out there, thank you so much for listening. Amrita, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you all next week.
Thank you.